You know, there's this interesting theory that there are two types of people in the world: cat people and dog people. Dog people like lots of superficial emotion and happiness, and everything must just be great. And cat people are just sour and cold and calculating. It's funny, you know, because all these years where I've been engaging with the mental health people, they've been telling me that I am too extreme in my thinking, and that black and white thinking is very, very bad, unhealthy, I suppose, because there isn't a moral element to it. It's so bad is the wrong word to choose, but so maybe unhealthy. But I reject that so much. I hate it. I think that in my reality, there is black and white. There is black and white thinking. There is God and there is Satan. There is light and there is darkness. There is nice people and there is not nice people. There are healthy ways of behaving and there are unhealthy ways of behaving. There are cat people and there are dog people. I think that the real thing about it, the mentally healthy way to express it, is that even though there are extremes, the place to be is not in one of those extremes, but in the middle of both of those extremes. So don't be a cat person or a dog person. Be a cat and dog person. Be a pets person. Transcend the divisions. So don't deny the divisions. Don't try to unify the divisions. Allow the extremes to be extreme. Push your mind to the furthest extremities of thoughts that you can go in all directions. But do it grounded in a reality that is centered on a perception of nothingness, of nowness. Don't take sides. Don't be this sort of person or that sort of person. Situate yourself within the multiplicities of choice. So we were talking a little bit about how long emotions last. And yeah, it's arbitrary and you can't measure it. And if you set up a study to measure it, well, obviously you've got to look really rigorously into how you set that study up. I mean, what is the stimulus that's going to cause the emotion? Is it going to be recognized and read by all people equally? Is the level of emotion generated in the participants going to be the same? There are so many variables when you're talking about emotions. How do you even set the study up so that you have something that you can compare to? How do you measure the length of the emotion or the intensity of an emotion? It's all subjective. I remember once doing a brilliant essay. Yeah, no, I've been arrogant for a long time. But I was doing this essay and I thought that it was really good, and I got 80% for it. And I was furious. I was like, how dare they give me 80% for this essay? This essay was great. Anyway, the point was, I look back at myself and I think, wow, it's lovely being young. You're so confident. Nothing's happened yet to knock your ability, your sense of your own ability. Yeah, no. Anyway, that was then. Okay, so the point was that I had this really interesting conversation where I phoned the lecturer and I said to them, look, I thought that I actually really put forward a good, reasoned argument in this essay, and I don't think that you recognize that. And we sort of had a little bit of back and forth, and he acknowledged that, yes, I'd covered all the points and I'd covered them well. And I said, well, then what's with your marking? And he said, oh, yeah, maybe you've put your finger on it. Maybe you're actually not happy with the way I mark. He said, for me, my point of view is that we're studying psychology and you cannot understand any of these concepts. This is psychology. We get this tiny little bit of who people are and how people function. But there is so much we don't get, and we need to keep that in mind all the time. And so when I mark essays, I'm trying to evaluate what the student is saying in terms of my mind, my sort of worldview of we can't know. So the long and the short of it was that he reckons that he never gave more than 80%. And he couldn't remember when he had ever given a person more than 80% for an essay. So that was like that's a conversation that's stayed with me all my life. For 30 years I still have that conversation as one of my sort of guiding visions in life, is that so much happened there for me in that interaction. I learned so much about myself, about my attitudes, about the way of the world, about other people's attitudes, about reaching consensus and understanding between two people. It was one of those, yeah. If I could NFT that moment, I would NFT that moment. It was beautiful. And so now I'm looking at this question that you've posed about emotions and how long they last. And your comments on the studies that I've mentioned about the duration of emotions and how, I mean, for me, the fascinating thing in this in the study, the thing that I just think is so like interesting, but is incidental to your question. The thing that I find amazing is that in all these fleeting emotions that we have, what were they? They were disgust, shame, humiliation, fear, and irritation. All these fleeting, intense, knee-jerk reactions that are so negative. And compassion is in there in that list. Disgust, shame, humiliation, fear, irritation, and compassion last on average for half an hour. And here we are part of a culture that was built on the idea of compassionate love of one man to another. I think one of Satan's great triumphs has been to replace the word love with the word compassion. I mean, we don't even talk about compassionate love anymore. We talk about love. When I ask people what love is, The very first thing we talk about are feelings of being in love. That's where we start exploring what love is in our culture. And that's fine. Start points are great. I'm just pointing out that our conception of love has been reduced to a lustful infatuation between teenagers. Like if you were the devil and if you were planning on destroying all the works of the god of your planet, don't you think that a really great thing to do would be to delete the concept of goodness, godness, out of the society? So instead of a concept of love as being an eternal, sentient, intelligent, intentional force that has your best will at heart, instead of this being our concept of love, we now talk about being compassionate and inclusive and tolerant and loving. It's so interesting talking to you guys about red pilling and your red pill moments and what red pilled you and things. I think my red pill moment was when I realized that love had been replaced by compassion. And doing this investigation into how long emotions last has been eye-opening, because it's confirmed that compassion is merely a fleeting half-an-hour emotion. You can't have it long-term. You can't be actually inclusive and actually tolerant based on compassion. You need to generate actual enduring emotions. Enduring emotions. Now, the emotion that lasts the longest is sadness, and it lasts 5 days. If it lasts longer than 6 months, it becomes known as clinical depression, and that is an enduring attitude of depressed cognitive functioning. You just can't cope anymore. Your brain just does not compute, and so you make stupid decisions, hear only half of the information that people say to you, forget huge amounts of things. And it's hugely detrimental. Enduring emotions, there are no positive emotions that endure as long as the negative emotions, sadness in particular. And sadness leads to depression, which is depressed cognitive functioning. There is no positive emotion that lasts like that. We don't need positive emotions. What we need is love. And this is something that is so important to get. God is love. Not the God of the Christians that sits on the clouds, because that God isn't love. That is an image that represents something else that I'm not talking about. I'm talking about love. The ability to wake up in the morning and pack your husband lunch to go off to work, even though you're really, really mad at him and he's really hurt you and upset you. Okay, I'm sure guys have got other things that they do, but I think for women, one of the acts of love they make for their men is to provide food. The other day, I opened a can of fruit salad, and I ate it out the can with a fork. And Callum walked in the room and he said, "Oh, come on, put a little bit of effort in." Yeah. When we didn't put effort into our food, there was just a pile of berries on the ground. But we've built this civilization where we do everything the fancy way. Everything the fancy way. And so we cut slices of bread and we put meat in between the slices of bread. And the meat is not chunks of meat ripped from a carcass, but nicely sliced meat, possibly seasoned, maybe with a sauce. So this amount of effort we put into things that doesn't change the flavor of the food, doesn't change the nutrition of the food, and yet you put something into producing this food and then wrapping it up in cling film and putting it into a box and then giving the box to your partner to take this food from your home, from your kitchen, from your fridge, prepared with your hands for him to consume. I could get a sandwich from the corner store and it'd probably be quicker and easier for everybody, but we don't do that. We make acts of service to each other, which is love. So yeah, so it's fascinating. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for stimulating me into this research into emotions and the duration of emotions, and for all these synapses that you are making fire in my brain, all the code and the poetry and the the Web3 series and the voiceovers and the acting and the bounties and the tokens and the communities, and yes, yay, everything. Rat City, guys. You're helping me make Rat City. Or maybe you already have Rat City and you're just teaching me how to play on all the games in Rat City. Maybe I'm still sitting here next to my cocaine water thinking, cocaine water, fun, life, cocaine water. But yeah, you're not taking no for an answer. Or maybe that's what life is. Maybe life doesn't take no for an answer. Maybe God really loves you. And maybe God really wants you to participate fully in your life. And that despite everything, despite all odds, we heal, we accept, we move on. And once we move on, we move into that place where you stand in the middle of all possibilities and all thoughts. You don't choose one side or another. You choose to stand at the center of the paradox and allow everything to happen like a miracle all the way around you. So yeah, thanks again, guys. Thanks again for being the miracle that love has sent to love me. Yeah. Thanks.